Good
Good
morning.
morning, Austin.
Hey,
Great to
Creswell.
see you again.
You too.
I loved after years and years of talking and working around each other, we find out we live virtually next door, and we ended up having a coffee in the Sunshine Coast. I'm sure one day I would have opened my roller door and you would have been there. And you, like, Wes, I'm just putting out your rubbish bin. So it was great to catch up with you. You also did, Austin, a great catch up with the Brisbane D365 community. I love meeting with you and Michelle Mancini. So maybe tell us a bit of the background, how you ended up in recruitment, maybe your childhood. How did Austin become Austin?
Good question. Yeah, really good question. And no, it was good to connect with you on the networking event. I hope that was beneficial, and hopefully we have some more of those. But yeah, I suppose, how did I get into recruitment? Well, it was quite simple, really. I wasn't sort of raised in poverty or anything, but I was always sort of, yeah, exactly right, and sort of always looking around, going, how do you make more? How do you do more, right? So I was always really intrigued by being able to, capitalize on your time and really ensuring that you're getting the most out of your day. And, as I said, capitalizing on your day as much as possible. So sales always sort of was just a bit of a thing that was always there. And I was always sort of in sales. And oddly enough, I literally just applied to a lot of different roles in Melbourne when I was living in Melbourne, originally from the Gold Coast, and moved to Melbourne to really start moving my career, and started applying to all different random roles. And a friend of mine from high school, funnily enough from the Gold Coast, actually said to me that he'd put in a good word. And sort of from there I got employed. And I was employed, and I learnt the ropes and the processes and how recruitment works. And I had no idea recruitment was an industry, really. I just thought it was HR, right? And
Yeah. Point.
Yeah, and everybody that is in recruitment is pretty much the same way. They're kind of like, yep, just sort of fell into it. So it's an interesting industry. And I've got up on my whiteboard type motivation board to the left of me, recruitment is the core of the economy. We stimulate the whole workforce, right? Without people being put into jobs, we don't have the workforce doing anything. So it's quite an interesting industry, and it has its pros and cons. But yeah, that's how I got into it, really, just through a friend referring me. Yes.
And that raises a funny point, that friend can be a backdoor into a job role. The right person sort of giving you their stamp of approval bypasses so many things. Do you find
100%.
your conversation with a CIO or a GM of IT,
Yes.
they've gone on their own process trying to find people, then you come along and you go, look, I've got 3 candidates, one of them is, out of this world. Do they just go run with that, or do they make you go through the whole process typically, or every time?
Yeah, I think if I understand your question correctly, you're sort of saying, that backdoor entry or that reference point, right?
Yeah.
And it's incredible because, I mean, in a specialist industry, referencing is the most important part. And being able to demonstrate your specialization or your knowledge in a particular market is imperative. So being able to talk to a client, a CIO, a head of IT, and be able to articulate somebody who has been referred to them, or somebody who has been at that site previously as a reference point. There's all different types of reference points, right? When talking to clients. And, funnily enough, I've even had clients call me and say they want a particular person in the market and go headhunt that person. So through referencing, we come to basically placements, right? Because people want referenced, qualified talent. And in an industry that is so diluted with all different types of, keywords and technical jargon, we've got to understand that these hiring managers aren't as technical as what you aren't as technical with knowledge as what I am. And sometimes I think candidates in all markets, whether it be sales, receptionists, technology, they really do push the envelope a bit, and they try and bite more than they can chew. And sometimes, clients are basically employing people because they've got all the technical jargon, but they don't necessarily have the competency to complete the task from an end-to-end solution. And that to your point about referencing is why referencing is so imperative, right? And clients do tend to, pick referenced candidates over non-referenced candidates. Yeah, it's a huge thing, right? Because if you put yourself in the shoes of a client, you're spending $500,000 or you're spending $300,000 on a statement of work with a 12-month contractor or whatever the case may be.
Yes.
Not knowing who you're engaging is daunting to a degree. And hence why consulting firms are around, right? Because companies can hold them to deliverables, they can hold them to all these standards. Whereas in the contracting space, it's kind of, it's best of pick, right? And if you can get a reference candidate, that $300,000 is probably feeling like it's going to be better spent, right? Or you're going to get more value out of that service because you know what you're entering. So yeah, referencing is massive, right? I like your tie in there, Criswell. It was good.
I was thinking of the actual transfer of risk. You know how with Bunnings, you've got the do-it-yourself model. So you've got this consultancy approach that you said these companies might charge you, I don't know, $350 an hour or something to get someone in. Could be $500,000 for a full-timer for a whole year. And then you've got this other model where you go, I can go advertise through yourself and get a person in, but I'm really taking on that risk. And then you're de-risking it by getting those references, check. Have you found things like with certification, another form of de-risking? Like what are the different ways employers are going, well, get me this, check this, do this before I take on this person?
Yeah, that's so funny. It's case by case, really. It's dependent on in my professional opinion, it's dependent on the person that you're dealing with and what they hold as important to them. So I think the short answer is it would vary. Do certificates hold value? Sure, they do. In fact, I'm going through some changes within our CRM where we can identify that in more detail. So I think certificates are of importance, certainly for partners, as that's where they hold their accreditation, gold status, silver status, etc. I think if you're going to call yourself and title yourself as a functional consultant, I think it's important, as a bare minimum, that those certificates against your profile, and that goes deeper, where I think Microsoft should even have that almost like a glossary around how to access certain consultants and what to expect, what are their definitions, and what certificates should they hold, almost like an Oxford dictionary, but call it a Microsoft role title dictionary, because to another point, clients struggle. Not all clients, obviously. Icon, where we first met Creswell, were fortunate to have a technically minded PM like yourself who understood the application, understood the way the roles were in the marketplace, how to identify certain skills. But you'd think that goes without saying. However, there's a lot of programs out there that are being led by non-Dynamics technically savvy PMs, right? So despite them having great fundamental capability, they do lack at times the ability to work out, what is a good consultant? What do I need, right? So I think Microsoft have a bit of a hole there in to fill potentially, or perhaps they lean on their partners to fill that as part of ensuring that their clients are ready for success when adopting the solution.
Yes, and I've noticed that IT has always been that area that either skills haven't been formally acknowledged, and unlike being a doctor or a plumber or electrician, for example. So, okay, I look forward to that being sorted out one day. But in the meantime, I'd love to.
It would be good, right? It'd be really cool.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Because that would take away much of the risk.
Just on that, 100%. But it also will help back to that networking event and stuff. Like it will help people who want to be a particular, I suppose, person in the industry, how they get there, right? They'll have a little bit more of a roadmap as to how to get to a solution architect. Oh, that's what a solution architect. That's what I want to do. It's like going back to when you were a kid watching TV going, that's what I want to do. You sometimes you need to be guided or at least shown what's out there in its full entirety.
Yes, agreed. One earlier point you mentioned about selling and your skills in it. I've always found in my relationship with you, I didn't find I was being sold, But I did notice a superpower of yours, which is persistence. No matter where I am in the world, you would still make contact, say hello, see how things are going in my life. And I find that to be the ultimate sales tool. Tell me where you got persistence from.
Yeah, good one. It's like mathematics, Creswell. Like if you're not persistently consistent or consistently persistent, is the way I like to look at it, you are not really, I suppose, you're not focused on what is that you're trying to achieve. So it's just really about understanding that there's a need. You know, when I first started CK Connect, what sort of made me keep pushing forward when it was really difficult. I didn't have a Dynamics network. I came from JD Edwards, right? And I just started a business and went into Dynamics pretty much. I think I had about a year worth of some exposure to it, but nothing major, no major contacts, didn't have a name in the industry. But what kept me being persistent is knowing, well, hey, at the end of the day, there's Hayes, there's Robert Half, and there's all these other recruitment agencies, which I won't go into, and they're all out there, you know, being able to transact. And I've been trained in how it happens, and there's nothing stopping me from being able to do that myself. So I suppose knowing that there's a proven framework, or knowing that there's a proven, as I said, mathematics, there's an equation which is proven, trialed, and it works. So I think that gave me confidence in being persistent as well. But I think, and I love the great thing I love about a specialist recruiter, and what they should add is genuine like value to the industry, and ensuring that the candidates in the industry have a point of contact where they can really lean on for insights, or whether they're going through a negotiation through a direct process, or whether they're going through another agency. You know, I think it's an industry, recruitment, so big and so vast and so different in so many different ways you can do it. But I think if every market had a specialist recruiter, you would be, the candidates would be like experiencing such a positive interaction with their industry, because as I said earlier, like we can help stimulate the workforce, right? And you know, it'd just be incredible if you had like, and I think you do have specialist recruiters in most industries, and I think they're the ones that add the most amount of value. So back to your question, yeah, being a specialist and knowing that you know what you're doing, it gives you that confidence to be persistent.
Okay. In those first few weeks and months when you started off CK Connect, was it 10, 12 hours a day on the phones? Or did you have a bunch of contacts you could call, shake the tree, and try to get those first few?
Just pinged you there, Creswell. And I mean, to be fair, it was a range of things, Creswell. It was a range of things. Could you just sort of repeat that question for me?
You know, when you first start CK Connect,
sure.
I know it's a new business, but you may have had colleagues who need positions filled, or did you have to just sit down, empty desk? I imagine this, 0 emails.
Yes.
Pick up the phone and you go, Frank, John, Mary, and you can just imagine this bang, 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 100 phone calls.
Yeah. Oh, 10, 12, yeah. I would say, Creswell, that I work 12 hours a day most days. Wow. And I worked on Saturdays. You know, I'd work a good half a day Saturday, or a full day sort of Saturday, or a split across the weekend. But, you know, again, it was really, as you would know, like, and any business, it's like building a house. You need to get the foundation in place, right? And I knew that the foundation was not there. Therefore, I needed to lay the foundation. So hard work was what I knew was going to result in an outcome that was positive. So I wanted to ensure that I mitigated my risk, and I didn't look at myself in 2 years and go, well, what did I do wrong? Because the simple answer would have been, well, I didn't work hard enough. So I just worked very consistently and just knew that there was a lot of value that I could add to the market. And you know, I still to this day have really powerful, positive, influential conversations with candidates where sometimes I come to work just to have a good day, because the people I get to speak to are just really nice and pleasant, and I've built some really good relationships, and they give back to me, and that to me is just awesome, because at the end of the day, we're all sort of here doing what we're doing, and we're all being contacted by all different types of things and people, etc. And the more positive interactions we can have in our own ecosystem, the more positive our lives will be, right? So, yeah.
True. Well, turning to an employer, say an employer comes to you, they have a role. What is the information you typically have to inform them about the market that they often misunderstand?
I think going back to that point earlier is role titles is a big one.
Yes.
Fascinating example, right? Have a role at the moment. Initially was emailed on a Friday afternoon about a technical solution architect. Spoke to the client on Monday or Tuesday, and through qualifying the job, right? Because we don't just qualify candidates, but we also qualify jobs.
Yeah.
And, that's part of this, what some would call a flexibility exercise, or, understanding the what they're willing to forfeit and what they're really wanting. So going through that exercise, I soon very quickly started steering the client towards a solution architect who was a more functional based skill set, which is who and what they're looking for, right? So that's a prime example. Email about a technical solution architect, and then next minute we're hiring for that functional skill set.
Yes.
And it's really simple, right? Because, and I appreciate where they're coming from, it's a technical solution. It's a Dynamics 365 is a technical IT product. But again, going back to that glossary, that definitions,
Yes.
what's technical in the Dynamics realm is not technical in a business realm, right? So
Right.
it's just that sometimes very basic, logical.
Job titles. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So that there's a really good example. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, how about the difference between people that fit into a consulting firm and people that are end user type consultants? Could you meet someone and say, the way you talk and the way you think about a job, you're a
Yes.
consulting, and
Yes.
and you have to go this side? Yes.
Yes. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And that comes down to people's personal attributes and what they want and what they need. And I think being a recruiter is so fascinating because you really start to learn how to just sit and observe and ask, right? And the more mature I have become, and the more I've been in the industry, the less, going back to your point earlier, the less I sell, the more I just sort of point out the facts and just go, look, this is that. And, I was listening to the snippet that you'd posted with Clark, one of
Yes.
our healthy competitors. And, I value what he had to say there. The planets do need to align, because at the end of the day, you can't force, we don't have, although I do have my own personal superpower, which I love you referred to that. And I think everyone has that. I don't have the ability to morph planets together, right? That's just not where I'm at yet. So it's really about leaning on the facts and going, this is that, and this is this. So just seeing if the two meet, and if they meet, fantastic. But yeah, does that answer your question, Creswell?
Yes. And I was thinking, with employers, is it the person who's actually engaging you, the person often working with them, or is it the CIO hiring for one or two levels down?
Good question. For me, I like dealing with the person that they're reporting to. And the reason
Okay.
being is you can create a very simplistic process. You can leave no doors closed. You can ensure that both parties are aligned and you're not being misguided, which very much can happen through non-related role titles who are managing processes such as your traditional HR, your talent acquisition. Although they have a place and a role, and some of them are technically savvy, at times they do hinder the overall process due to their inability to comprehend the technical jargon that the actual hiring manager is looking for. So a lot of the time we deal with hiring managers, as you would know, Creswell. I used to reach out to you a fair bit when you're in that hiring manager capacity. And also talking more strategy and more longer term and more sort of partnership level activity is where we talk to CIOs and heads of departments, which are different conversations outside of traditional recruitment sales activity.
365 is such a technical area. Are you seeing a shift from in-house support to consulting firms, or the other way around?
I think it's always going to be, it's just going to be a free flowing fluid market
Mm.
where it just has this, then it has that. And I know that's quite a aloof response to your question.
Yeah, I'm trying to pin you down.
Yeah. I think the thing is, I've been in recruitment for ERP for 10 years, and starting off with JD Edwards Oracle as a product, that market was almost dead in terms of partners. You had UXC Eclipse, which is now DXC essentially.
Yeah.
They were Red Rock. And then you had Fusion 5, who acquired Myriad IT. And outside of that, then you've got Endeavour, who are a Melbourne-based smaller consultancy. But the reason I bring this to the attention is, it's a mature product. It's a very mature product. And what I noticed in that mature product market from a recruitment standpoint is there was proper contractors. When I say proper, I mean like there were people that were just contracting for 20 years in that space, right? Because it was a mature product, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, I think the market from the companies who utilize the product are also, in my opinion, mature ERP hirers, for example. So I think the more they've been around that rodeo a few times, right, they start to understand where their strengths lay in terms of building their own internal project teams or support teams, and where their weaknesses lay. And that's where they'll outsource to consultancies. So there's all different reasons why, as you would know, people use internal teams and external teams. But I think overall, I could jump on that bandwagon and say, yeah, sure, there's a shift. But I genuinely just think there's probably less execution of dynamics, new projects in the market. And there's a lot of projects in Australia that have not necessarily gone as well as what they would have liked. And therefore, there's a change of approach. And that's probably what you're noticing or what people are noticing in the market is a shift.
Point. So maybe like they tried consultants first, they may try another consulting firm, and then they might go in-house. So it might be that they're trying the other thing just to see if that has a better success rate.
I think so. Yeah, it's funny, right? Because companies really don't know what they don't know.
What about candidates? I can imagine if I put a roll out with you, you get 100 resumes. How do you do the chop? The first 1 or 2 levels of chop to get 100 down to 50, down to 25, down to 3.
Yeah, good question. It's really just being able to, and the beautiful thing about being a specialist is you get to know names, right? You get to understand what these candidates have areas of specialization in, and then what they don't have areas of specialization in. So it's being able to identify the basics, right? And just knowing that a program manager isn't aligned to a functional position. So sometimes you have to just thin those out.
So we were talking about how do you filter 100 down to 50, 25, 3. And you said the job titles may be a quick indicator, right? So a functional consultant is not a
100%.
business analyst.
Yeah, exactly. Just being able to quickly filter using your 10 years of recruiting experience helps. It's funny you asked that question because I've never had 100, nor have I ever had 50, nor have I ever had 30. The maximum in a short list that I would receive would be maybe 10 to 15. Again, we are fortunate
you have
enough.
someone pre-filtering?
No. Like we never post ads really on Seek because the dynamics market is not a market which you can just post an ad and hope for the best. I mean, sometimes you can 100% luck out, definitely. However, we're very much aware of people's availability and tend to work more with the candidate as opposed to needing to take on a job and then filter through a bunch of CVs. But to answer your question, it would be through job title specific, and then it would also be through just understanding, obviously, what their key skills are through looking at the first 1 or 2 pages of a CV and really being able to understand if they're suitable or not.
Well, let's jump into the CV. Everyone punches you a 2-pager or 4-pager type document. What's your tips? This is how you improve. This is how you get, a person like yourself to go, bang, that's beautiful. I want to meet this person?
Yeah, sure. The way they lay their CV out is pretty important in the first 2 pages.
Yes.
First 2 pages is imperative. And being able to clearly articulate and demonstrate your key skill set and value in a page or in 2 pages is really striking to the eye, and it helps you conceptualize their capability very quickly. And I think if someone can do that, that's a skill set in itself, right? 20 years of experience doing all sorts of things, but being able to shorten that down to 2 pages is a skill set, right? Like I wouldn't even know how to start. It takes a lot of trial and error, and ensuring that someone's got a clean, well written, well visualized CV is important. And going back to your point, licenses, certificates, methodologies, end-to-end implementations, like, being able to understand your worth and then being able to demonstrate your worth on paper is a key skill set. I think people actually struggle with, I think, and for good reason. It's not easy. So, yeah.
It's funny because if I do go to LinkedIn, I can actually see some amazing, layouts or structuring of their jobs, how they actually bring out the value that they've provided. And if I could recommend to others to go look at awesome resumes or LinkedIn profiles, and you can use that as a template to build your own. Yeah, it's a great test. That's the first test when they come to you.
Yeah, right. It's always good when
What about
BAs don't actually spell correctly in their CV. That's excellent.
Yes.
That's handy.
Yeah, it's a rush job, and then you can feel how their documentation or interview techniques would be like.
Yeah,
What about the
exactly.
actual LinkedIn profile? Is that gaining popularity in terms of people looking up their potential employees?
I think it would be. Yeah. I mean, I don't have clients specifically outlining to me that that's what they do. I think as a recruitment consultant acting on behalf of a hiring manager, we certainly look at LinkedIn's a fair bit, and it helps us see very quickly where they've worked, if we know of any mutual connections, and understand who they are in more detail. And I think LinkedIn is a fantastic tool that people should be using.
With the interviews, do you have any technique that people can use? They're in the top three, you put them in, and I'm guessing people drop the ball often, and you wonder, why didn't they just answer this question, or why did they, basically fail at that last stretch, the last stretch of the 100 meters?
It's a really good point. And I think interview preparation is really key, right? You spend a lot of time preparing for the role itself. As a recruiter, you're preparing a lot of time finding the candidate. I think one place where recruiters could, from what I've heard from candidates as well, right? And I love hearing candidates' feedback, because that's how I continue to be confidently persistent, right? Because I hear so often where we're lacking in the industry. And I think interview preparation is key. I think ensuring that candidates are aware of the very basics, Creswell, all right, which is a collared shirt if you're interviewing for a particular role. It's making sure your camera's on. And we're talking about stuff that you'd expect would be no-brainers, but sometimes people haven't interviewed for decades. People forget the expectations of what an interview is all about. And it's our role to ensure that they're aware of these things, dress code, what to expect in the interview, and also making sure that you understand from your client what they're expecting, because then that way you can ensure that what you just said doesn't happen, or at least mitigate it as much as possible by informing your candidate of how best to go about their preparation, and even doing some like referencing before the interview for your candidate can also be of assistance. So yeah.
A quick chat. So tell me about some of the roles that you worked with employers with and that has gone south, completely failed. And you're trying to reflect, what you have done differently, or the candidate or the employer? What's the missing bit that makes those connections not happen?
It's over promising and under delivering.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I think that would be the short answer. I think if you are taking on work from executive or hiring manager and you're not able to actually find what it is they're looking for, and you send a CV that's not anywhere near what they're looking for, that's where you get connect.
I have done this before with you, and I should apologize, where I want someone to fill a role, and I don't have a position description, a PD. And
Sure.
you go, Austin, find me someone like this. And I just give a rough job title.
Yes.
And then I can imagine sitting there going, what the hell? Is this a real job? Is there budget? And I have
Yes.
to find someone.
Yes.
How do you deal these no PD jobs?
Oh, that's great. Not many jobs have PDs. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier, qualification,
Yeah.
job
Yeah.
qualification, which is really understanding key questions and creating your own definition, your own job description is
Yeah.
important, and being able to articulate that to the candidates. So I think just qualifying your job, making sure that the client has the job ready to go, they've got it budgeted, all the rest of it, and then making sure that you are able to ask the right questions that help you give the candidates enough information for them to make a decision on, right? It's so commission orientated recruitment that you unfortunately it can be very competitive, and I think that actually creates less of a service in the process. And candidates unfortunately just called up about a job and they're like, oh, Criswell, can you do a project manager role next Friday with whoever the company may be, right? And then that's all you get, right? And you're like, oh, well, can you tell me more? And here you are being, an astute technical person in the industry with all this knowledge, and it must spin you out. And even to this day, when I was young and I was recruiting and I didn't have much knowledge, I just think to myself, geez, people were nice to me. I had no idea what I was talking about, right?
I would say still go for the job, right? Even if you just get a title, don't cut yourself off at the knees. Go for the interview. Go and find out more, because it's very surprising how when you start talking, all that info comes out.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. And I still do urge candidates to meet where there's doubt with a client, because
Yeah.
the only place where I may come across not pushy but like quite certain is no, make sure you meet with them and then form your decision. Because
Yeah.
Going back to the conversation earlier, like clients may not have relayed the correct information to me, because I've had times where a client relays this and then when they meet with the candidate they discuss this, and it's like, well, hang on a second. And then all of a sudden you're doing a placement. So it's such a, if you stand back for a minute, you go, hang on, these are companies that specialize in manufacturing cars and selling vehicles, right? They don't specialize in application, process
Yeah.
improvement, and adoption. So it's important to bear that in mind and really help guide your client to the best outcome possible for them. Sometimes
I remember.
they've got, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, again, some companies are fortunate and they have relevant people to guide them and steer them with hiring people like yourself, like a D365 project manager. But then you find companies out there that will just put the person who is doing GM of finance in a project manager role, and then
Yeah.
they're running the project, right? So it makes it difficult.
And doing their full-time job.
Correct. Or trying
Yes.
to, at least. Yeah.
It's funny, when I was, say, hiring someone, I often would have to default back to a job title, like, say, we're looking for a business analyst, and the roles are never perfectly aligned with the template. There's often this little bit here that I needed someone. It could have been an interface to a certain type of application. It could have been EDI. It could have been some other technology, like in Azure, we need something plugged in. And so I often found when I meet with candidates, their openness to learning, discovering and doing things that's a little bit outside of their boundary always help me fill that role and get other things solved at the same time. But if a candidate says, no, I'm just this is all I want to do, don't give me anything more, but that culture fit wasn't there. I felt, no, I can't work with this person. They're too rigid.
Yeah, and I think the point being is like the product's always changing as well, right? And the
Yes.
company you're working for right now could be the only company that's doing that methodology or that style of implementation or that ISV integration. So,
Yes. Yes.
bearing that in mind is important as a hiring manager, but also, as you just said, as a consultant, you want people that are amenable and flexible to change and wanting to adopt new ways of doing things because that's what the product is doing every day. So therefore, people need to also be similar minded with the way the product's evolving.
True, true. Austin, I can see our time's running out. Tell me, where does CK Connect, the name, come from?
That's right. I may have a few more minutes, Chris. Well, it's not hard stop, but I do need to jet in about 6. CK Connect is so CK. I didn't want to be traditional and just say my name like Austin Kent Recruitment. And my grandfather, his name was Charles, and my middle name's Charles. And I didn't want to make it about me. I didn't want to make it about Charles. I just thought, well, CK sounds pretty cool. And connect, I like the idea of connect, and because that's what we do, right? We just connect people. So I thought, yeah, CK Connect. And I thought, it's not Google with the syllables, but I thought, yeah, well, who cares? It's all good. I think it'll do well. And I was very firm with that decision, and I stood very confidently with it and just kept it like that. Although, kind of lie a little bit, I had a moment where I was thinking, do I need to change the name? So there was a point in time where I thought about changing it.
Charles lives on forever. So what's happening next then in the industry? You mentioned some new technologies coming out. There's AI, obviously, with Copilot. There's Power Platform. In the old days, did people just say D365 functional consultant? Now they're saying, and we'd like Power Platform, and we'd like a bit of Copilot.
So I think the product's maturing. I think the need for integration is growing. I think the need for Power Platform skills is here, right? There's companies everywhere looking for Power Platform skills. So I definitely think understanding that tool set will be the only way forward for functional consultants to stay equipped.
Yeah.
And I don't know enough about AI. I know it all starts with data. I know it all starts with ensuring that your data is on point. So I'd say Azure as an ecosystem itself is something to keep an eye on. And then from there, I'm not sure what's happening, but I know data and Power Platform is of serious importance to Microsoft professionals and businesses.
So when I'm rolling out implementations, I often find that there's a ring put around D365, it's punched in, but there's lots of integrations not yet done, and they're left like waiting for some future budget. So I do see there's massive growth potential there if people were to say, well, I know D365, I've also got some Azure certification or background, I could plug D365 into your environment rather than leaving it isolated. Yeah.
And that sounds so important, right? And I think there's a Power tool, I think it's called Power Automate, that integrates.
Yeah.
Quite well.
Move data between. Yeah.
Sure.
Austin,
yeah.
Austin, thank you so much for sharing your time this morning with me and your
wisdom.
Thank
you for having me on.
I look forward to catching up again for a coffee when we next meet.
Yeah, for sure, Chris. Well, that sounds good. All right, mate. I'll let you go. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you. Take care,
See
Austin.
you, Chris.
Mobiz is a community-run organization. We believe in liberating people from the shackles of monotony, inspiring them to dream bigger and reach higher. We empower them to focus on the things that matter, growing their skills, solving new problems, and helping others on a global scale.
We eliminate manual work that stands between people and their future, preventing them from learning new technologies, unleashing their talents, and leaving a legacy that has a lasting impact.
Freedom doesn't wait. Join us at mobees.com.